Good morning, everyone. Let us begin. Happy New Year, by the way, to everybody. Happy New Year. Psalm 119, starting in verse 9, says, How can a young man keep his way pure? By guarding it according to your word. With my whole heart I seek you. Let me not wander from your commandments. I have stored up your word in my heart that I might not sin against you. Blessed are you, O Lord. Teach me your statutes. With my lips I declare all the rules of your mouth. In the way of your testimonies I delight, as much as in all riches. I will meditate on your precepts and fix my eyes on your ways. I will delight in your statutes. I will not forget your word. Father, may this be the longing of our hearts this morning and every morning that you give us to live in this world. We pray that we might thirst after your word as a deer pants for water. We pray, Lord, that our obedience might be empowered by your Spirit, informed by your word, and inspired by your love for us. We thank you, Lord, for this great privilege of being able to fellowship around your word today. Will you bless our time, O God, in Jesus' name? Amen. Um, Before we start in our series on the book of Acts, we will embark on a very short mini series, maybe just for the month of January and maybe a week or two of Feb. And as soon as we embark on the book of Joshua in the main service, we will start also a series in the book of Acts here in Sunday Bible School. But in the meantime, we will have a short mini series on reaching out to the marketplace. And the reason why I chose this, because I think it's very relevant for us, those of us who come to church in GCF, which is, you might argue, is a marketplace church. We are in the middle of the second largest commercial business district in the country, which is Ortigas Center. And we are in the midst of the marketplace, you might argue. If we were in Paul's day, we would be in the agora, which is the Greek term for marketplace. And of course, those who are in the marketplace, those who are believers who are in the marketplace, ought to reach out to the marketplace. And that's our theme for this year as a church. We want to build up and reach out. And that is what we want to do. Now, of course, those of us who are in the marketplace, or those who are in the marketplace, we are normally engaged in work. Now, there's very little teaching, I believe, in the church today about the theology of work. Nobody likes to work. All of us, we love holidays. We like the Christmas holidays. We enjoyed it. We took time off from work. We do not like to work. If we can get away with not working, we will. We won't work. Work is never a pleasant subject to talk about. But interestingly enough, it is very central in the life of a believer. Working is very central in the life of a redeemed disciple of Christ, because we were created by God to work. So if you hate working, you will have a problem, right? So in fact, God meant for us to enjoy work. And that's why he has a lot to say about work in the scriptures. And we will go through some of that today and maybe next Sunday as we try to dig into what the Bible says about work and our theology of work as believers. Work is one of the most important activities of man. Without it, life and order in society cannot be attained and maintained. Work accounts for the bulk of everyone's waking hours. I don't know about you, but I work roughly 8 to 10 hours a day, 5 days a week. And that is my work in the marketplace. And of course, my work as a pastor and a teacher here in GCF also occupies roughly about the same number of hours every day. You know, if you include the hours that I spend teaching here and preaching in the afternoon service, and of course other hours spent mentoring and counseling and all of that, that's all work. If I count all of that, all or the bulk of my waking hours is actually spent working. I only sleep 6 to 6.5 hours a day. Far too less than I should. I probably should sleep more. I probably eat more. No, so um, and work is often misunderstood in our world today. Many people think it's a curse, and they will say, "Well, di ba in Genesis 3, after Adam and Eve fell, God told Adam, by the sweat of your brow, you shall eat your food." Doesn't that make work a curse? Well, it's not, because actually work was mandated even before the fall. In Genesis 1:26, 1:28, 2:15, God put man in the garden to work it and to subdue it. Therefore, we were created to work. That's why if you don't work, you don't eat. No. So, we are created to work by God's creative design and purpose. Work is actually a reflection of His divine image in man. God is a worker God. He's always working. He never sleeps. He never slumbers. He never rests. But that's because He's God. And of course, He gave us the example of working 6 days, and then He rested on the seventh, not because He needed to rest, but because He wanted to set an example for us. He made us to be vulnerable to exhaustion. And so, while we are commanded to work, we are also commanded to rest. So, man was made to exercise dominion over all of creation, and such dominion involves active work. Well, some of you perhaps are managers where you work. The word for manager in the New Testament is the word oikonomos, the one who rules the house, the one who oversees the oikonomos. Actually, a steward of the resources of the house. That's what manager means. And God made us, created us to be managers of the world that He gave us. Oikonomos, by the way, for some of you who might find it interesting, is the root word of the word economics. That's why the word home economics is a redundant term, because economics itself means managing the home. And I particularly like that particular trivia because I am an economist myself. I am an oikonomos by profession. And man was created, in fact, to work and to cease from work. Exodus chapter 20, the 10 Commandments says that. 6 days you shall work, but on the seventh you shall rest. So what we will look at certain selected proverbs this morning so that we can understand, even just on the surface, what the Bible teaches about work. I hope you find that to be an interesting and relevant subject. It certainly is. It certainly is for me and should be for each one of us. Because we are all created in God's image and our God is a worker God, then we should be workers ourselves. So please don't hate work. At the end of the series, I hope that you will get to love work. Because if you love your work, you will not work a single day in your life. The key is to love your work, to understand why you work, the purpose behind your work, the motivation behind your work. Because if you understand that and you get to love your work, you will never work a single day in your life. I have been a professional for 42 years, 43 this July. No? So I've been working that long. And I actually love working. In fact, maybe I love it too much. That there was a 10-year stretch of my work life where the company actually notified me that I had not used a single hour of vacation leave for 10 years straight. I love working so much, I don't know what to do when I'm on vacation. So that's bad. No? But we should love our work because God is a worker God and He created us in His image. So first, let's look at the right motivation for work. And you will find a word there that you might find abhorrent. What is the right motivation for work? Well, firstly, it's wealth. Wealth, yes, we want to be wealthy. We want to be productive. We want to create value with our work. So the first motivation or the right motivation for work, firstly, is wealth. Proverbs 10 verse 4. A slack hand causes poverty, but the hand of the diligent makes rich. Now, who does not want to get rich, right? Everybody wants to get rich. But this is the kind of rich that is pleasing to God, the kind of rich that is a product of the natural productivity of ourselves. Wealth itself is not evil. It is the natural consequence of being productive. If you're productive, if you're diligent, if you're industrious, assuming all things equal, that's a term that economists always use. In Latin, it's called ceteris paribus, assuming all things equal. If you are productive, you will be, by definition, wealthy. And by definition, wealthy means you eat 3 meals a day, you have a roof over your head, and clothes on your back. That's wealthy. So by that definition, all of us are wealthy because we are productive in our work. What is evil actually is laziness. A slack hand causes poverty. Laziness, whether in the form of non-activity or in the form of sloppiness or sloppy work, both will lead to poverty. Now, to gain wealth for the sake of accumulating wealth is wrong. Wealth is a motivation for work, but to gain wealth for the sake of just accumulating and hoarding your wealth is wrong. But to acquire wealth through productive enterprise in order to serve others and to serve God's purposes is a correct motivation for work. So don't feel guilty if you are motivated to work so that you can produce or create wealth for yourself, especially if that wealth you have committed for the purposes of God and the service of others. In other words, wealth that you can share. No? Second, motivation for work. Reward. We work so that we can get a reward. And that is to enjoy the fruit of one's labor. Look at Proverbs 12:27. Whoever is slothful will not roast his game. They were in a hunter society during that time. So if you are lazy, then you will not be able to hunt and procure game for your food. But the diligent man will get precious wealth. There's a reward for work. Proverbs 27:18. Whoever tends a fig tree will eat its fruit, and he who guards his master will be honored. So tending a fig tree is one of the agricultural activities in that society in the Middle East. The Middle East, particularly Israel, is very famous for its figs. If you ever get the wonderful blessing of being able to visit the land of Israel, please do not miss the buying of figs. They have the best figs in the world. And they're really sweet and they're really good to eat. Very bad for my diabetes. So whoever tends a fig tree will eat its fruit, and he who guards his master, this is the image of a servant, he who guards his master will be honored. So there is reward that is a good motivation for work. Now you might think that to work for reward is something mercenary. Not necessarily. A mercenary is somebody who is a gun for hire, right? That's what the term mercenary means. If reward is something that is mercenary, then if that were true, then the Bible will not use our reward in heaven as a motivation for us to do good work as Christians. We all know that as believers, we will one day stand before the bema seat of Christ, or the the judgment of our works as believers. And when we stand before that, we seek a reward. And to seek a reward is a good motivation for work. In fact, if you're an HR practitioner, no, there is a term that is called reward and retention. Reward is a means for retention, retaining people in the positions that they're in instead of jumping ship and moving to another job after a few years. So reward is connected with retention, retaining people, because reward is a good motivation for work. These proverbs actually simply say that the one who works well will enjoy the reward of that work. To the diligent hunter, the game that he hunts; to the planter, the fruit of the tree that he tends. A man who spends time in the gym, obviously not me, will be rewarded with a fit body. No? I started exercising last night. My wife, under the guise of asking me to accompany her to walk our dog, no, actually coerced me to walk. So I walked for about 34 minutes last night at a decent enough pace to pump my heart. And hopefully I can do that every night. I'm sure my wife will make sure that I do that every night. But one who, and my son, so the one who spends time in working out will be rewarded by a fit body. An artist who labors over his paintings will be rewarded with a thing of beauty. A businessman who works diligently to serve his customers will be rewarded with revenue and profit. By the way, that's the most honorable way to conduct business. That is to satisfy and even exceed the expectations of your customers. If you do that consistently, your business will always be growing and will always be profitable. Spiritually, and all of our work, by the way, is spiritual. If you do work because you're a creature created in the image of God, then all the work that you do is spiritual. As a believer, nothing is secular to us. So my job in GG Summit is not secular. That this world will define my job there as secular. But for me, it should not be secular. It's a spiritual task that I do for my real master, who is the Lord Jesus Christ, who has called me to work in that organization and to work in this church. So that is not secular. All work is spiritual. And the same principle holds. When we work, we should work for the glory and the pleasure of God, not the praise of men. You see, the third motivation for work is accomplishment. Accomplishment, to earn a proper sense of personal worth and recognition. I wanted to make it clear that this should be a proper sense of personal worth. Because naturally, as sinful men and women, we have an inordinate sense of personal worth, especially in today's generation. We think that self-esteem and personal worth is the end-all and be-all of everything that we do. So anything that weighs against that is something that is a risk factor for mental health issues, right? If you don't have enough self-esteem, no, then some people say you will have a mental health issue, and that's front and center in our society today. However, a proper sense of personal worth is something that a believer should have. Our worth is in Christ. Now, Proverbs 22:29 says, "Do you see a man skillful in his work? He will stand before kings. He will not stand before obscure men." Accomplishment in work is a very powerful motivation. But you might think that this is precisely the praise of men that we should avoid. Remember, we're talking about accomplishment, not acclaim. The praise of men is the simple currying for the praise of others, which is acclaim. Accomplishment is different. Accomplishment is the right result of diligent work. To serve before kings, according to this proverb, is a recognition of the significance of one's work. This is when people see our good work and glorify our Father who is in heaven. Matthew 5:16. We are to work to glorify God. That is accomplishment. If you work for the praise of yourself, that is just acclaim. And acclaim can be very empty. While accomplishment can certainly boost our sense of personal worth, it should not be the main source of self-esteem. Our self-worth must have its origins in the value that God places on us. We are people precious enough to have His own Son die for our redemption. That's our value. Our value is in Christ. Our value is not in our work. Because, our work can disappear. I'm approaching the time in my life when I am laos already. I'm like a professional basketball player that can no longer jump. But of course, it's been 35 years since I really jumped. So, I am approaching the time of my life when there are men who are younger, quicker, faster, stronger, more patient, more energetic than me. And so, I am, as this world would say, over the hill. But that is not my sense of value. My sense of accomplishment is in carrying out God's will for my life. If that is your sense of accomplishment, then you will never lose accomplishment as a motivation for work. There's a last, maybe I just thought of 4 motivations for work. The last is service. So wealth, reward, accomplishment, and then now service. Service is to provide for our needs even as we also serve and provide for the needs of others. That's service. Proverbs 27:18. Whoever tends a fig tree will eat its fruit, and he who guards his master will be honored. Verse 27. There will be enough goat's milk for your food, for the food of your household, and maintenance for your girls. Proverbs 28:19. Whoever works his land will have plenty of bread, but he who follows worthless pursuits or schemes will have plenty of poverty. That's very instructive because I think the last Sunday of this month, we will have a message during our worship service on personal financial management. And I will be preaching that particular message. I'm preparing for that. And one of the issues is people who want to get wealthy by involving themselves in get-rich-quick schemes. Nobody, beloved, gets rich quick. There is no such thing. No such thing. Those who get rich quick are not really rich. Because those who get rich by diligent labor find the wealth from the process of the labor itself, not the rewards of it. So while wealth, reward, and accomplishment are all motivations for work, maybe the noblest of them all is service. Service. This is the best and noblest motivation for work. It is when we effectively serve others that we create value and the very means to serve our own needs. Do you know that if you work as an employee for a company, there's a certain value that you create for that company? And as long as you are creating that value, you will remain employed. And if you create more value than what they pay you, you will get promoted. And if you create more value than what they pay you and they get you promoted, you will get wealthier. You will have a lot more resources than you need. You will have a surplus. And what will I do with my surplus? Will I build bigger barns so that I can say, you have done well, eat, drink, and be merry? No, right? What does Paul say the rich of this world should do? 1 Timothy 6. We should not depend on the fleeting value of riches, but instead share what we have, at the same time enjoy all good things legitimately. So, you work to gain wealth, reward, accomplishment, and service, right? And when that happens, you will find yourself with resources more than what you need. What do I do with those resources? You give them away. You give them away. You share them. You be generous to others. That's what 1 Timothy 6 says. Because the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. And because of the love of money, many have pierced themselves with all sorts of pain. In order to avoid that, because money can do that with you, then you give it away when you have too much or more than you have. Give it away. Now, having said that, please do not borrow money from me after this Bible study. Okay. What's the right manner of work? That's the second thing. We now know the right motivation, wealth, reward, service, accomplishment. But what's the right manner? How should we work? First, we must work diligently and resist being lazy. Proverbs is replete with remarks against the sluggard or the lazy person. Proverbs 10, verses 4 and 5. A slack hand causes poverty, but the hand of the diligent makes rich. He who gathers in summer is a prudent son, but he who sleeps in the harvest is a son who brings shame. Another one, Proverbs 12:24. The hand of the diligent will rule, while the slothful will be put to forced labor. Proverbs 14:23. In all toil there is profit, but mere talk tends only to poverty. There are people who are workers, and there are people who are just talkers. Sabi nga nila, laway lang ang puhunan. That is never true. There's no such thing as laway lang ang puhunan. So please, if somebody tells you, you join this pyramid scheme, no? Laway lang ang puhunan dito. All you need to do is to be good, to be a good talker. Good talkers are usually not good workers. No? And so, in all toil there is profit, but mere talk tends only to poverty. Proverbs 20, verse 13. Love not sleep. See, that's why I only sleep 6 hours a day. Love not sleep, lest you come to poverty. Open your eyes, and you will have plenty of bread. I say that only jokingly. We should sleep at least 8 hours a day. I sleep 2 hours short of that, but that's my goal, 8 hours. I actually have a sleep tracker in my watch so that my sleep hours can be monitored every day. So I do that. But too much sleep is also bad. You'll come to poverty. The word that is translated diligently literally refers to something that is a sharp cutting action, something deliberate, something definitive, something prompt, something decisive. That's what the root word or the original word for the word diligent. It suggests forceful, deliberate, purposeful activity. That's work. Physics defines work as force times distance, right? Oh, you forgot your physics already. No? Force times distance is equal to work. No? Um, the opposite is laziness. The word for lazy or slack or sluggard does not denote inactivity or laxness, but it also denotes an element of deceit, delay. Not fulfilling your promise is the word for lazy in the Bible. So lazy is not just being like lazy, no, sitting on your lazy boy watching YouTube. That's me. No? That's not lazy when you do not deliver on your promises, when you're not prompt, when you're always late, no? When you're slack in your work, when you're sloppy with your work. That dishonors God. So we must work diligently. Second, we must work skillfully with appropriate skills applied. By the way, for those of you who are management practitioners, you will recall that there's this system that we got from the Japanese called TQM, Total Quality Management, right? And I should know this. I have a PhD in management, which was just given to me as an honorary degree. I do not have the brains to finish a PhD. No? There are several doctors here. They're real doctors. I'm a phony doctor. Kaya PhD. Phony doctor. Okay? But we must work skillfully. Total quality management means you deliver on your promise. And that is the biblical word for diligence. When you deliver on your promise, when you say, boss, I will finish it at the end of business today, and you do, you're being diligent. When you delay because you're slothful, you're sloppy, you are careless, you're neglecting good work, then you are lazy. No? So be aware of the broadness of the meaning of the words. So you must work skillfully with appropriate skills applied. Proverbs 14:4. Where there are no oxen, the manger is clean. Siyempre, walang oxen walang kakainan. Walang kakainin sa manger. Manger is a feeding trough. But abundant crops come by the strength of the ox. The ox was a tool for agriculture during that time. And that's what it means. There are certain tools that you can utilize to create value. And you must develop, acquire, enhance those tools, those skills. Proverbs 27:23-24. Know well the condition of your flocks. We had just come from New Zealand, and just about 30-45 minutes outside of the city of Auckland, whether you look towards your left or to your right, you will find cows. Cows, cows, and more cows. There are more cows in New Zealand than there are people. And then if you go further on, you will find sheep. Sheep, sheep, and more sheep. There are at least 6 sheep per capita or for every person in New Zealand. There are 5.1 million people in that whole country. There are more people in Pasay City than in the whole of New Zealand. No? So each one of them has 6 sheep because they have that much sheep. So they can understand this. Know well the condition of your flocks. And give attention to your herds, for riches do not last forever, and does a crown endure to all generations? And that's the challenge of many business conglomerates today. They want the industrious, the industry, the diligence, the work ethic of the first generation that built the company to be imbibed, absorbed, and practiced by the second generation who will grow the company. And normally it's the third generation that fritters out the wealth and makes it disappear. We must work skillfully. Right use of assets or tools at our disposal. An artist is skillful when he employs his talent on materials at hand, whether it's acrylic, oil, watercolor, or materials for sculpting. A doctor is skillful when she uses her training on diagnosing and curing an ailment and making soap, in the case of my wife. So, my wife has had 15 years of medical training. Today, she is a soap maker. I kid you not. Yeah. Yeah, right. So, a lawyer is skillful when he applies his knowledge of the law for the pursuit of justice, not the perversion of justice, like many lawyers do. Now, not all lawyers are perverse. We have many lawyers in our church, and they do so apply their skills for the pursuit of justice. Skill, therefore, is not just something that is given us, but something that we develop. It's something that we apply discipline to. It also results from diligence. Good intention should not be an excuse for poor skills at work. Some people at work, when we do our performance appraisal, he's a nice guy, but he's always late. She's a nice girl, but her work is sloppy. That should never be said of any believer, of any Christian who represents Christ in the marketplace. We should be the most skillful and diligent workers wherever we are. We should be the best doctors, the best lawyers, the best businessmen, the best artists, wherever we are called by the Lord. And thankfully in GCF, we have reason to thank God for these many people of these different professions who are excelling in their fields to the honor and glory of God. That is work. It must be skillful. Third, we must work purposefully, with a purpose, with a plan, with a set of priorities. Proverbs 24:27 says, prepare your work outside, get everything ready for yourself in the field, and after that, build your house. That proverb suggests a sequence of activities, a plan, right? Now, I have spent 42 years of my professional life as a strategic planner. So this is my job. I plan. Work will not get done when there is no plan to carry it out. A plan that simply says what you're going to do is not a plan. It's a manifesto. A plan that says what you're going to do and has dates on it and deadlines. That's a plan. Because you have every intention to carry it out on a certain date in a particular way. That's a plan. We must work purposefully. Planning for a believer is discerning the will of God. Because our objective as believers is to carry out the purposes of God for the service of His people. That's work. That's our work. Whatever kind of form of work it appears to us, whether you're an engineer, a lawyer, or whatever, you are doing all for the glory of Christ, in the name of Christ, and in the service of His people. That's our work. And we must plan our work carefully. We had just finished a planning and budgeting cycle here in GCF. It's amazing, but our planning and budgeting process here in GCF is more complicated than JG Summit. I kid you not. Our entire strategy as a conglomerate in JG Summit can be put in one sheet of paper this big. You cannot imagine how many sheets of paper we have in GCF. We have our entire strategy, a $150 billion conglomerate, in one sheet of paper. Because if we can't put everything that we intend to do in that sheet of paper, we won't be able to do it anyway. So planning is important. Planning has to have priorities. You should be able to make decisions as to what's more important than the others. Planning is working purposefully. So, we must work diligently, skillfully, purposefully, and we must work with integrity. Very important. Proverbs 13:11, wealth gained hastily will dwindle, but whoever gathers little by little will increase it. This is the proverb that you quote to those who come to you with a get-rich-quick scheme. If you lend me money, I will pay you back 20% every month. Or 20% per annum. No such thing. There is no business that yields 20% per annum except drugs and crime. There's no business that yields that much. So if somebody comes to you, you will get 8% guaranteed every year. Run away from it. It's not true. 6%, yes. Time deposit now in the banks for 361 days is 6.2%, 5.8% net of withholding tax. Okay? But 8%, that's too high. That's an economy that's overheating. No? Take it from me, I'm an economist actually. Some people can't believe that, but I am. Wealth gained hastily will dwindle. Get rich quick. Don't ever fall into things like this. No? There are so many apps today that are in the digital social media field that lend you money. If you have a GCash account, you will get SMS messages from GCash almost on a daily basis, incentivizing you to borrow. Borrow now, pay later, BNPL. That's a business model that many banks now utilize. Borrow now, pay later. Consume more than you make because that will give the credit card companies business and profit. Make it your mission not to enable the credit card companies. If you do have a credit card, make it your mission not to make them make money. They will only make money if you consume more than you make. Therefore, you need to borrow. Economics is very simple. If you make 100 pesos, you just consume 100 pesos. If you consume 110, you will have to borrow the 10. And if you borrow it from a scoundrel, then you will have to pay 10% interest per annum. Buti if it's only 10%. You know what 5-6 is? Never get into 5-6. 5-6 is 20% per annum. Per month, I'm sorry. That means 240% a year. That means that if you borrow 100, it will more than double in a year's time when you pay it. So, if anybody comes to you promising things like this, you must stand with integrity and say, no, that's not the way to go. The Lord says, I can be wealthy, but little by little, he who gathers little by little will increase it. Unscrupulous business practices. Some people say, you're a pastor and you're a businessman? How can that be? You know why? Because businessmen today are regarded in the same way that tax collectors were regarded during the time of Jesus. We will talk about a certain tax collector today in worship. No? And businessmen today are sometimes regarded like tax collectors were regarded before. Harangang kaluluwa. Do you know that term? No? Ibinenta na ang kaluluwa sa pera. And many businessmen do indeed work that way. Not us. Not us who are believers. We must always work with integrity. Remember, seek first the kingdom of God and all His what? Righteousness. So when we conduct ourselves in business, we must do so with integrity. Integrity means being one inside and out. Being the same person inside and out. If you are perfect with the holiness of Christ inside, then you must be perfect with the righteousness of Christ outside. And that goes with all businessmen, lawyers, engineers, accountants. Please do not allow people to use you as an agent of fabrication. Fabricating money or values that do not exist. I remember my first chief accountant before, when I was CFO of another company, he came to me, he said, Boss, magkano ang gusto niyong kita natin this year? Yung kinita natin. Kaya nga, boss, magkano? Magkano gusto mo? Kasi I can make it whatever amount you ask me to make it. I fired the guy. He was cooking our books. So, that is not working with integrity. By the way, it's a simple thing sometimes. Coming to work on time, not using office supplies for personal purposes. Oh, we do that all the time, right? Oh, it's just one ball pen, it's just one stapler. I just discovered I still have a calculator that belongs to JG Summit and it's in my desk at home. Of course, I'm still working for them, so I can still use it. But if it's an office equipment that I use for personal use, I am not working with integrity. It's very tough to work with integrity. Finally, or last two, work completely. Always finish what you start. Proverbs 26:15 says, the sluggard buries his hand in the dish, it wears him out to bring it back to his mouth. In other words, kumakain siya, no? Will get food from the dish and is too lazy to bring it to his mouth. He doesn't complete the action. We must work with the goal of satisfactory completion. Finally, we must work effectively with the goal of meeting expectations. Proverbs 27:18, whoever tends a fig tree will eat its fruit, and he who guards his master will be honored. We must complete our work. We must finish what we start, and we must do so by meeting expectations. Marami pa actually proverbs and scripture references to talk about work, but these are, I think, the most important. The motivations for work is wealth, reward, accomplishment, service. And how should we work? Diligently, skillfully, purposefully, with integrity, completely, and effectively. Now, if you are a good worker for the glory of God, people will see your good work and glorify your Father who is in heaven. It will be a platform for you to reach out to the many people who are in the marketplace who still do not know God. They will see Christ in you through your work. Sometimes, people ask me, what is the best marketplace ministry, Pastor? Should we start a Bible study right away in the place where we work? Well, first of all, if there's no place for you to meet, where the office will allow you to use office assets for a Bible study, you should not start a Bible study. Unless they allow you and you ask permission. But most offices will say, well, if we allow you, we will have to allow the Muslims, the Buddhists, and everybody else. Right? So you can't do a Bible study. Does that preclude marketplace ministry? No. The best way to proclaim Christ in the marketplace is to work this way. To be motivated by wealth, reward, accomplishment, and service for the glory of God. To work diligently, skillfully, purposefully, effectively for the glory of God. If you work this way, you proclaim Christ more loudly than somebody who just talks but does not walk the walk. It's very important that we work excellently. By the way, that's the topic of our next subject, next Sunday. So please come back if you want to learn what does it take to work excellently for the glory of God. Let's pray. Father, we thank you that you have taught us that work is an expression of our being created in the image and likeness of God. That work is something that you gave to us as a gift so that we can provide for our needs and serve others. That work is a holy enterprise, a sacred trust, worthy of diligent skill and integrity, because by work we glorify God and we carry out His purposes in this world. Help us, Father, to be excellent workers, good workers for the glory of your name. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.